If you had to choose the right model to become a great leader, would you choose an MBA, the traditional education model for business, or EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System? In a lot of ways, an MBA and EOS are like apples and oranges. But if you're considering a business education for you or your leadership team with the purpose of bringing real value to your business, I'd like to share my experience having done both myself. So I've graduated with an MBA while employed with my family business, and I led an implementation of EOS through that same business. Now I help other leaders and teams to do the same today as an EOS implementer. So in this video, I want to walk through the real differences between the two, not from a theoretical perspective, but as someone who's experienced both. So when considering each option, it's important to think about who each one is really for and the value each can bring to your organization, what you actually learn and apply from each option, the time and the financial investment, and most importantly, what kind of results each one is designed to create. Because the truth is, an MBA and EOS solve very different problems and bring value differently. One is an education, and the other is an operating system for running your business. And depending on where you are in your career or where your company is in its growth, one of these might be dramatically more valuable than the other. In this video, I explain in detail the differences between both and when you may consider one over the other. At some point in a leader or an entrepreneur's career or business journey, the opportunity may arise, or it just may come to mind that more education around business may be valuable. Sometimes this comes when a team gets stuck, or they feel like they've hit a plateau, or that they have some blind spots and or maybe they just feel like they need some more education. When that happens, they might consider an MBA, or they may consider implementing a system like EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So I want to break down the value of both because you may be thinking of one or the other, and I want to save you from going down the wrong path for you, because each of these options could be a 2-year journey or longer, and you want to make sure that you're making the right decision for you. So an MBA and EOS are actually an interesting comparison because they're very different things. One is a formal education, and the other is a practical operating system for running a company. But I'm in somewhat of a unique position to talk about this because I've experienced both. I earned my MBA while working with my family business, and I've also led an EOS implementation in that same business. And today I work with leadership teams implementing EOS inside their companies. So full disclosure, you're getting this information from someone who makes a living as an EOS implementer. But with that said, I have experienced both. And I want to walk through the differences honestly. I want to help you understand when each one might make the most sense. So let's start with the most important difference. An MBA is an education. An EOS is an operating system for running your business. An MBA is really designed to teach you the mechanics and the theory of business. You'll study finance, marketing, operations, strategy, leadership, economics, all of the disciplines that make up the necessary lessons in business. And ideally, that knowledge helps you to make better decisions throughout your career as an individual leader. And that's an important point I'll talk about later. EOS, on the other hand, is designed to help a leadership team run a business more effectively. It's not really academic. It's extremely practical for the right type of business. It gives leadership teams a simple set of tools to strengthen 6 key areas of that business, which have been shown to make a company, by Jim Collins' definition, great. Those key areas are vision, people, data, issues, process, and traction. And the goal is simple. Get everyone in the company aligned around a clear vision. Get them executing with real discipline and accountability, and build a healthy leadership team that drives through the culture of the company. Now, the next big difference between an MBA and EOS is the ideal who that each path is designed for. An MBA is primarily designed for an individual leader. You, as a person, gain knowledge and credentials that can bring value into any business that you go into. And that can be incredibly valuable to you if you want to move into leadership roles or change industries or companies throughout your career, or work for large corporations with thousands of employees, billions in revenue, or even public companies that are traded on the stock exchange, or Or if you just want to build a strong foundation in business thinking, an MBA can be great. In fact, many multinational corporations still view an MBA as a strong signal when hiring leaders. And a lot of times, where you get your MBA can have a huge influence on where you get hired. So it can be valuable to a career-minded individual that has a specific path in mind. EOS, on the other hand, is designed for leadership teams. It's most powerful when the entire leadership team learns and implements the tools together with discipline and accountability. Truly, EOS is designed to focus on the greater good of the specific organization that it's being implemented in. And that's an important distinction. It's not focused on the individual leader. It's focused on the organization as a whole. So instead of one person going away to learn and then coming back with ideas, the team will work together in real time to strengthen the business. And this is why EOS is most commonly used by privately owned companies that are growth oriented. Typically, they're somewhere between about 10 and 250 employees. And these are often companies that have grown successfully, but they've hit a ceiling. They might feel stuck or they've hit a plateau. Communication may have broken down, or maybe people aren't fully aligned and execution is just not happening. EOS helps leadership teams break through those ceilings by creating clarity, accountability, and focus. Now, another big difference is how the learning actually happens. In an MBA program, you're usually part of a cohort of students from a wide variety of industries and companies. And that diversity can be really valuable because you're getting a lot of different perspectives. You're exposed to those perspectives and different case studies and different ways of thinking and a lot of different industries. So most of the work happens outside of your day-to-day job. So you're studying companies, analyzing case studies, and applying academic frameworks. But it is very much outside of and in addition to your job in whatever company you're working in. EOS works almost the exact opposite way. Your cohort is your leadership team. Instead of studying other companies, you're working directly on your business. And during EOS implementation, leadership teams spend intentional time working on the business. They clarify their vision. They define roles through the accountability chart. They identify measurable data points on a scorecard. They set 90-day priorities called rocks, and they solve real issues in real time using a structured process. So instead of theoretical improvement, the business starts improving immediately as the team implements these foundational tools. That creates an alignment that just doesn't happen with an MBA. So time commitment is another important consideration when you're thinking about an MBA versus EOS. An MBA usually requires a significant amount of time outside of your day-to-day job in classes, group projects, studying, assignments, often for 2 years or more. And for many people, it's essentially a second full-time job. EOS also requires an investment of time, but because you are focused on your business, it's time spent optimizing your business and making better use of your time in the business. Leadership teams typically meet in focused sessions throughout the year, including annual planning, quarterly sessions, and weekly level 10 meetings. But that's intentional time focused directly on improving the business. So instead of studying hypothetical business problems or case studies, you're actually solving your own. Then, of course, there's the cost of MBA versus EOS. An MBA is, of course, a significant financial investment. And depending on the program, it can range from tens of thousands of dollars to well into the six figures per year. And that doesn't include the time and energy required while you're actually in the program. EOS implementation typically costs significantly less than the annual tuition for an MBA, often in the low to mid five figures, depending on the implementer and certain logistics. But more importantly, the investment is made at the company level, and the financial return often shows up directly in the performance of the business. Companies that run on EOS frequently see improvements in clarity, accountability, productivity, and of course, because of all that, profitability. And that makes the return on investment really a no-brainer for target market companies that are willing to do the work. And that's a key point. Truly target market organizations that are made to operate on EOS will benefit from it. And the leadership team has to be willing to do the work. If the leadership team is expecting EOS to work for them without doing the work themselves, then they're not going to get what they're looking for. That's where companies lose out on the investment in EOS. So when does each one of these make sense? So if you're an individual who wants to deepen your understanding of business, build strong credentials in networking, or position yourself for access to leadership roles in large organizations, an MBA can be worth the investment. But if you're a business owner or a leadership team running a privately owned, growing company that feels stuck, you may not need more business education. You may need a business operating system because many entrepreneurs build successful companies without ever formally studying business. So, more education isn't necessarily the need. They need structure, they need clarity, they need accountability, and a simple set of tools that can help the entire team execute better together. So, if I could simplify that into a cohesive statement, it would be this: an MBA helps you understand business, EOS helps you run the business more effectively with more clarity and less friction. Both can be incredibly valuable. They just solve different problems. And if you understand the difference between the two, you can make a much smarter decision about which one is right for you. So if you're curious about EOS and you want to learn more about how it works inside real companies, I am happy to schedule 90 minutes with you and your team where I can share in detail how EOS works. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.